Hi, I'm Danny Silk. This is Sherry Silk, and we are coming to you from the Loving on Purpose studio. And it's fun to say that. It's not really a studio, it's a corner of a room, but nonetheless. We're having conversation after conversation about some of the things that are going on in the world today, and we're just wanting to be helpful. We're wanting to add to the conversation in such a way that lowers anxiety, that increases the message that we care about each other, and that really connection and unity is our goal.
Absolutely. So we've been covering topics like disrespect and the culture of honor not being a culture of harmony, and just sort of some bird's eye view of the situation going on in our country right now, all over the world actually, and what we can do about what we're responsible for. And one of the issues that you and I have talked about being the problem here is fatherlessness.
Right. I mean, it's so easy to get distracted. I remember when I was a little kid, we used to chase lizards around, right? And if you trap a lizard, but you don't actually catch him, and you just get him by the tail, he breaks his tail. He just lets go of his tail. And if you ever watch a cat or a dog or something do this, that tail twitches around, and the cat will jump on the tail, think it has the lizard, and the lizard gets away, and all the cat got was the distraction.
It just grows another tail.
And it goes and grows another tail, and that feels like the ongoing narrative switch with the prince of the power of the air feeding a news cycle where people go, oh, well, that's the problem. Oh, here's the problem. Oh, look over here's the problem. And everybody walks away with a tail, and nobody actually catches the problem.
Yeah. So explain to me or share with me the fatherless issue in your life when you were growing up.
I think when we present all these other problems, whether it's racism or classism or sexism or all the isms that we present, what we take our eye off of is there's a behind the scenes strategy of our enemy to destroy what God has built. And what God has built is family.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's a reason that there's a man and a wife whose parts fit together so nicely, and there's a life result from that. And the strategy to dissolve that creates all these other problems. And if we focus on all the problems that are created from the actual problem, then we'll never solve this one. I think that the statistics are off the hook as to what happens when you just remove a father from the presence of a family. And I'm a living example of, I grew up without a father. My father leaves when I'm 5 years old. And my mom is on a journey throughout my childhood to find a father for her children. It changed our economics. It changed our social status. It changed our opportunities. But it changed the culture of the family, the level of accountability, the level of input, the man lessons. Like, there's so many things that happen when you remove the stability of a two-parent design. And I think that I was headed down the same track of the destruction that surrounded our family in that parental dissolve that happened. It wasn't until I was 21 years old and I got saved, and Jesus came into my life, and my eyes were opened to the fact that I actually have a father that I didn't even know existed. And that father would never leave me. That father would never turn his love off towards me. That father was never going to go do his own thing. That was a father I didn't have to protect myself from. And that was a father I could become like. And in doing so, there was the change. There was the marked change of the consequences of not having a father in my family. Was I now have one. All these other men came into my life, and they brought with them the same revelation, the same connection, that they had the same father, and we're a family. And here I am. I now have the stability of a family and an identity, provision, protection. All of those things now flow into my life, and I'm no longer an orphan.
Right, and there's certain characteristics of an orphan that there's a belief that I'm alone, I'm by myself. It's up to me to be the master of my own fate. It's just me, I'm on my own. So it takes on different forms as far as how your personality is or how you experienced your life. And I had divorce in our family. My parents divorced when I was 1. My mom remarried when I was 6. And that came with a very dysfunctional, violent stepfather. And he is the only father I lived with, really. And so there was a war at our house between my real father, because I'm the youngest, and my stepfather. So my brothers are older than me, and I watched them. This is really common. Divorce is really common, and step parenting is very common. One of the things I would tell step parents is do not set your children up to choose one parent over another. And what would happen in my house is my mom and stepdad would make fun of my dad, my natural father, and so you felt like you had to not like him. You felt like you couldn't choose him or want to be near him or want to get to know him. I actually had no contact with him until I was in my late teens. And so one of the things that I watched my brother do is he chose to be an orphan. So even though we had a father figure in the home, he did not want to have to choose between the father he loved and his natural father and his stepfather. And so he became an orphan, and with that became all kinds of crazy behavior. And so, there's a yearning inside a child for a mother and a father. There's a yearning, and sometimes we're not even aware that we don't have it. This is just our normal. Our normal is I'm fatherless. And I remember I was 32, I think. I came home from a trip, and you sat me down, the kids were in bed, and you said, I need to let you know that your natural father has had a stroke and passed away. And this man I've hardly had any contact with, probably spent, less time with him than, a distant friend. And I remember that feeling in my gut, in my heart, and I remember thinking, oh my gosh, he's gone, which now that means that my parents will never get back together again. So I don't even know where that thought came from or that feeling, but there's this yearning for a father in our lives. And as soon as that option was taken away, that my parents, my little family unit, would be the normal, what's supposed to happen in someone's life, was gone. Mm-hmm. It was really emotional for me.
Mm-hmm. I remember when you said that. I remember you said, I guess this means my parents will never get back together again. Yeah. And I just thought, wow, that was a strange response. Or not strange, but one I wasn't expecting, for you to say this about this man who essentially was a stranger, but not a stranger.
Yeah.
As someone that you longed for since you were born, and you were 35 years into that, and you still longed for that. I think that in all my years working with foster children, you take a child who is severely abused, tortured, tormented by these out-of-control parents, put them in a home with these loving people who have successfully raised their own children, and all these children can think about is returning to their parents.
Yeah.
There's a bond that's God-given, and God gives us a family structure, a family unit to get the deepest needs of who we are met, but it also holds up a model of really heaven's government.
Yeah.
Heaven's government. Jesus came and he points to not the king. He doesn't come and say, everybody serve the king. He comes and he points to the Father to point out to we're all a human family. That's who we are. We're actually knit together by this role of Father. Mm-hmm. It makes us a family. And when a spirit of destruction, when the enemy comes in like a flood, the result is a destruction, a dissolving, a removal of the Father, so that the rest of the human beings are vulnerable. The women and children are vulnerable to what it is now this invader chooses to do. Yeah. And so Loving on Purpose has been on a journey for a decade now of strengthening families, strengthening couples, strengthening parents, strengthening through a culture of honor, the women would be respected and honored and held in a position that is equal in its honor and function as anybody else, as men, as leaders, as anybody. That children would actually be empowered and honored by and people who make mistakes. The new book, Unpunishable, is really how we give ourselves permission to dishonor people who fail. Well, that's everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone fails. So there is no permission to dishonor anyone. We're to honor all people, including all three of those groups. I think that if we focus on the strengthening and the unifying of families in our society, so many of these ancillary symptoms will drop off because we didn't inject society with a massive dysfunction. And you can go online and look up all the statistics around fatherlessness, and you'll just be shocked. Yeah. You'll just be shocked. Just spend some time on some of even the U.S. Census Bureau or the Department of Justice or whatever, any of those, and you'll discover some pretty amazing consequences of neglecting this one key piece of how society is structured with heaven's intent.
Yeah, and through the years we've kind of chased fathers away. I remember back in the 90s and talking about every TV show was some father that was not respected in the home. He's just, he just could barely function. So, I mean, it was even like, how do fathers even get out of bed and go to work? You can't put two thoughts together. And so we're inviting you back.
Yeah.
We really need fathers to step up. It doesn't matter. It's not about age or children you produced on the planet. It's more, you love well and you're willing to spend time with. You mentioned getting saved when you were 21. I got saved when I was 21 as well, and I had never seen a really normal functioning family. I was shocked. I was like, nobody's yelling, like nobody's trying to hurt each other. I was shocked. These families and these fathers need to step up. And then if you're a fatherless person, go find somebody and say, I need to be loved. I need to have connection with somebody that will pour into my life. And there's a bunch of people out there wanting to help.
Mm-hmm. And there's a global movement of really reestablishing men who bring a godly masculinity to nurture a family and take responsibility for their impact on society.
Yeah.
And not just being selfish, inward little infants who just demand from everybody some service, but they actually transform into people who sacrificially protect covenant and sow strength and nurture into everybody.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you guys for joining us and being part of this conversation.